Today we're going to talk about 5 red flags you should look out for when you're buying a home in this market. If you're new here, my name is Jessie McClellan and I'm a realtor here in Oshawa, Ontario with the Lisa Abbott team. If you're buying a home in the near future and want to stay up to date on everything happening in the real estate market, especially in Durham region and the GTA, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The first red flag is a bit more obvious but important nonetheless, and that is the condition of the home. Take into consideration how the yard has been maintained. If the home is clean, look for the everyday home maintenance items and see if they've been done. If the home has a jungle in the front or backyard and the floor is movie theater level sticky, it makes you wonder what else the homeowners are neglecting to do behind the scenes that you can't see and could surprise you later. If you're worried based on the state of the home, but not put off enough to avoid it altogether, have your agent ask some questions to the listing agent and find out the reason why it might be looking this way. Is it an elderly client who took great care of their home for the first 20 years and now is just no longer able to maintain a home that size by themselves? Or is it someone who has never maintained their home over the course of their ownership, or multiple families in the home causing extra wear and tear without proper upkeep, or even a tenanted property? But that's another subject with its own risk factors altogether, and if you'd like to see a video on tenanted properties, I'll link it in the description for you. The next thing that could be a red flag is odd showing availability. Now again, this could be due to accommodating a tenant or homeowner's schedule. Sometimes homeowners work odd hours or have something going on in their lives that they can only accommodate showings during certain times of the day. But sometimes it can also be because they're trying to hide something. It could be that their neighbor takes their massive dog out around a certain time each day and they don't want a prospective buyer to see and hear a large dog, so they block that time off. Or it could be something like not allowing showings for a couple hours in the afternoon each day during the week because a public school lets out during that time. And if you drove by the house during those hours, the streets were totally packed with vehicles of parents lined up ready to pick up their kids, making it very difficult to navigate through, which is also not super attractive to a potential buyer. So while not every showing restriction is cause for concern, if it seems odd, it might be worth further investigation. The next red flag is when a lot of homes come up for sale in one area all around the same time. Now, of course, this can be for many different reasons, but as a home buyer making probably the largest investment of your life, you probably want to know why. If it's happening in a neighborhood of freehold properties, it could be because there was an announcement made or word starts getting around that there's a new development being built nearby. We had this happen in Curtis. There was an area that my clients were interested in that had relatively low turnover, and then all of a sudden we saw a fair amount of homes come up for sale all on the same street at the same time. And when we dug a little deeper, it was because there was a condo that was going to be built at the end of the street, which is the only way in and out of that pocket. So some of the homeowners wanted to avoid the construction and increased traffic in the area and decided to list around the same time. I've also heard of new subdivisions where everyone thought their kids would be attending the new school being built nearby, but when zoning was complete, one side of the street was forced to bus their kids to the other side of town in a neighborhood that they did not purchase in. So of course, many homes on that street came up for sale too. If it's happening in a condo building or complex, it could be that the owners know an increase is coming to the monthly maintenance fee, or that a special assessment is coming because of a lawsuit or major repairs needed to the units. When there's a major cost that cannot be covered by the funds the condo currently has available, they're forced to raise maintenance fees or issue a special assessment, which is a lump sum that all unit owners are required to pay to help remedy the situation. And it can cost thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars depending on the situation. Sometimes condo owners also have issues with the members of their condo board or their property management company, whether that's about how they're spending the money or how they're neglecting certain costly repairs or the implementation and enforcement of new rules. So if you see an unusual amount of homes or units for sale in one area or building, have your agent dig into it because there's likely a reason why. Now quickly before I forget, if you're looking to buy a home, there's a link in the description to my resources page with a bunch of free resources like a home search app and home buying guides, which contain some really good information, so definitely feel free to check those out too. Red flag number 4 is flipped homes. You likely already know some of the risks when it comes to a home that was purchased with the intention of flipping, meaning someone tried to buy the home for the cheapest they could, do renovations, and sell it for as much money as they can get out of it. but I wanted to mention it because in the market we're currently experiencing, the risks are even higher in my opinion. Is this an experienced investor or contractor who purchased this house? Or is it someone who has no experience but was hoping to make a quick profit? In 2021, lots of people with little experience were investing and purchasing investment properties because interest rates were so low and property values were still rising so quickly. But if you're from my area of Durham region, or honestly almost any market in Canada right now, you probably know that home prices have been coming down. And that makes flipping homes make even less sense and more difficult to turn a profit. So you generally have less experienced people doing these flips, and they're having to cut more corners to save on costs because everything is more expensive, all while home prices are coming down, which very quickly eats into their profit. So I would be very, very cautious of any homes that were recently purchased, renovated, and then listed for sale again. People who have invested money in renovations also generally want to see their money and more back out of the project, even if it was a DIY. You just want to weigh out whether it's worth it for you to pay a premium for a property for someone else's renovation work, or if it's worth it for you to look at another property you could renovate to your own tastes and make sure it's done right. The problem with some of these DIY projects is that they can look beautiful in photos, and they may even look okay in person but cause issues down the road. An example of this is a homeowner doing the tiling work in the shower. They didn't fully waterproof the shower and then put the tile in. It looked beautiful in photos, and then in person it looked a bit off. If you can notice mistakes and poor workmanship with the naked eye, it's probably safe to assume that there's a lot of poor workmanship that you can't see. And unless it's the deal of a lifetime, it may be best to consider other homes too, and at the very least, you should do more digging. Ask your agent to pull the previous listing and see if there are any clues about how it looked before, and compare it to how it looks now and ask any questions that arise. And always get a home inspection by a trusted and certified home inspector. If you don't know any in your area, your realtor will likely be able to help you out with a few names. Of course, some flips are gorgeous and done correctly, and some investors may have just got stuck in a market where home prices are coming down and they're going to take a haircut on a great project. You just want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. This last red flag I haven't seen talked about very often, but it can be a very real problem in this current market. As I mentioned, home prices have been coming down, and many homeowners purchased in 2021 and 2022 at the peak of the market now have a home worth less than what they paid for it, and in some cases, that difference is hundreds of thousands of dollars. This may sound great if you're a buyer, but you need to be aware of when the seller bought the home and what they paid for it, because they might not actually be able to afford to sell it. I had a client who just purchased a home for around $800,000, but the seller of the home had bought it 3 years prior for well over $1.1 million. So the seller is taking an over $300,000 loss, especially when you factor in lawyer and realtor fees. That's awesome for our buyer, but we need to make sure that the seller can afford to sell their home and that the transaction will close for our buyers. There are a few different scenarios that can play out. If the seller owes more on their mortgage than the buyer is paying, the seller would either have to pay the difference out of pocket, or the deal wouldn't close, and it could easily turn into a long and costly legal battle between the buyer and the seller. Or let's say the seller accepts the $800,000 offer, but they owe $775,000 on their mortgage. They have enough to pay off the mortgage, but not enough to cover all of the fees involved with selling a home, and that could end with lawyers or realtors going after the seller or buyers for their costs. Basically, it can turn into a legal mess in multiple ways, which is not what anyone wants. Now, I wouldn't say that you should avoid a home just because you would be buying it for less than the seller paid, but you absolutely need to make sure that your agent and your lawyer are doing their due diligence on your behalf. They need to be communicating with the listing agent and the other lawyer and getting an understanding of the seller's situation, and they should also verify the seller's mortgage amount. With my clients I just mentioned, I paid the $40 or $50 for a document that verifies the remaining amount on the seller's mortgage so that my clients had peace of mind that what the listing agent said was true and that the sellers don't owe more on their mortgage than they're selling the house for, meaning the property should be able to close successfully. Because a great deal on a home is only a great deal if it closes. If you're going to be buying a home in the near future, check out some of the other videos on my channel. There are lots to help prepare you for the process, and I post weekly videos talking about our market conditions, what to expect, and how to be successful in navigating this market, so don't forget to subscribe. And if you feel like I might be a good fit for you, there's also a link in the description to book a call with me at a time that works best for you to get your questions answered. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Please hit that like button if you liked today's video, and don't forget to turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one next week. Bye!